Right now, Europe has 65 billion euros just sitting on the table.
Yeah, literally waiting to be spent.
Right. And at the exact same time, there's a critical shortage of about 1.8 million green energy workers. Plus, you have an entire generation of white-collar professionals who are, well, staring down replacement by artificial intelligence.
It's a massive collision of economic forces.
It really is. And the proposed solution to this unprecedented continental crisis, it's actually coming from a tech company headquartered in Laguna Beach, California. Welcome to today's deep dive. We are thrilled you're joining us today.
Absolutely.
Our mission today is to unpack a profoundly disruptive situation that, well, you might actually be feeling the ripples of it in your own career right now. We're looking at a fascinating press release from March 2026 by a company called Eon AI Ventures.
And, the source material might just be a corporate press release, but the macroeconomic reality it's responding to is completely unavoidable. The data they cite from the European Commission and these major economic indices, it just paints a stark picture. We are looking at a global workforce standing at a historic crossroads.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because it is exceedingly rare to see a single tech initiative try to just swallow a 65 billion euro continental crisis whole.
Yeah, you don't see that every day.
Exactly. But to even grasp what EON is proposing, we have to first establish the exact nature of the emergency happening in Europe right now. The text refers to it as the dual disruption.
That's a great term for it.
Let's look at the first half of that disruption. According to the Anthropic Economic Index, which is a metric tracking the exact capabilities of AI against human labor, 40% of EU white-collar tasks are automatable today.
Today, not a decade from now.
Right. If you are sitting at a desk right now working in financial services, legal, marketing, software development, you are in that 40% crosshair.
And we must emphasize that this isn't some futuristic projection for 2035. That is the reality of the technology deployed right now.
It's wild to think about.
It is. 4 out of every 10 tasks that define the modern desk-bound middle class can be executed by a machine. But, that is only half the crisis.
Right, because simultaneously you have the European Green Deal. To meet its climate targets, Europe has legislated this massive structural shift, but they've created a terrifying labor shortfall in the process.
A massive one.
They need 1.8 million new workers by 2030. They desperately need solar and wind technicians, EV infrastructure specialists, circular economy operators, smart grid managers.
And the friction between these two massive economic shifts is quite literally tearing the European labor market apart.
Yeah.
CEDFOT, that's the European Center for the Development of Vocational Training, they report that 77% of EU firms are currently reporting critical skills gaps.
77%.
Yeah, the capital is there, the projects are approved, but the companies physically cannot find the human beings qualified to do the complex technical work required.
It's kind of like a massive ship where you're frantically bailing water out of one side because of a massive leak.
Right, the white-collar AI job loss.
Exactly. But on the other side of the boat, you are dying of thirst because you don't have the workers to capture the rain from the green transition. It's just, why are these two forces uniquely paralyzing Europe compared to the rest of the world?
What was fascinating here is how the rapid advancement of artificial intelligence is colliding with deep, entrenched demographics and rigid borders.
Okay.
Europe isn't just fighting a technological shift. They are fighting structural friction across 27 different member states. Just take a look at youth unemployment in Southern Europe.
Right, the numbers there are rough.
In places like Spain, Italy, Greece, Portugal, youth unemployment is sitting at over 25%.
That is a staggering human cost. I mean, 1 in 4 young people locked out of the economy.
It is entirely destabilizing. And the mechanism driving it is clear. The entry-level professional roles, the basic copywriting, data entry, junior coding jobs.
The stepping stones.
Exactly, the vital stepping stones for recent graduates. They are being eaten by AI before those graduates can even build a resume. You have an entire generation locked out of the traditional white-collar pipeline.
Yet, at the exact same moment, billions of euros in green energy projects are stalled because there is literally no one to build the infrastructure.
Precisely. The jobs being lost and the jobs being created require entirely different, highly specialized skill sets. And the bridge to get workers from point A to point B is, well, it's effectively broken.
Which naturally leads to the question of funding. Like, if the problem is this glaringly obvious, why isn't the government fixing it?
But they are trying to.
Right. Reading through the source material, you realize they are. The European Commission has unlocked historic amounts of capital. We are talking about 65 billion euros committed.
Huge sovereign wealth and recovery funds.
Yeah, like the EU Skills Agenda, Next Generation EU, the European Social Fund Plus, the Digital Europe program. The money's literally sitting in bank accounts.
The capital is deployed, but the text makes a compelling argument that the bottleneck isn't the funding at all, it is the delivery infrastructure.
Okay, break that down.
Well, currently,
Mm-hmm.
traditional university tuition in the EU runs anywhere from 10,000 to 30,000 euros a year.
Right.
The argument presented is that the current physical university system simply cannot absorb that 65 billion euros and output certified, highly skilled workers at the required speed.
And even more crucially, they cannot do it across the 24 official languages of the European Union.
Exactly.
Here's where it gets really interesting, and I have to push back on this premise just a bit. Because Europe has some of the oldest, wealthiest, and most prestigious academic institutions on the planet.
Oh, absolutely.
We are talking about universities that have survived world wars, centuries of political upheaval. With 65 billion euros on the table, why can't legacy institutions like Oxford or the Sorbonne or Sciences Po, why can't they just build these new Green Deal programs
It's
themselves?
a fair question.
Why do they need some outside California tech platform to act as the middleman?
It really comes down to structural lag and the physical limitations of legacy academia. Traditional universities are brilliant at deep, foundational, long-term research,
Right.
but they're fundamentally not engineered for agility. Think about the mechanical life cycle of creating a new university degree. A faculty committee has to design the curriculum, which takes, at least a year.
Usually longer, yeah.
Then that curriculum goes to an accreditation board, take another year or two. By the time a traditional institution launches a specialized degree in, say, AI-optimized smart grid management.
The technology has moved on.
Exactly. The underlying technology in the field has already iterated twice. The degree is obsolete before the first student even graduates.
And then there is the language barrier.
Oh, the language barrier, it's massive. Scaling a highly technical, dynamically updated course across 24 different languages is financially ruinous for a single legacy institution.
Because of the translation costs.
Right. They would have to hire an army of specialized translators and multilingual professors for every single course update. The 65 billion euros is effectively choked by a 20th century delivery system trying to solve a 21st century real-time crisis.
So the traditional universities are too slow, and they lack the multilingual scale to move the needle.
Exactly.
This is exactly where the source material introduces its core subject. Eon AI Ventures and their global virtual campus. EO1 claims they have built the solution, and they are deploying it for roughly 1% of the cost of traditional EU tuition.
1% is a massive claim.
But wait, if they are cutting the cost down to 1%, what are they actually cutting out? Are we just talking about glorified YouTube tutorials with a chatbot attached? Because let's be real, that isn't going to train someone to manage a high-voltage electrical grid.
And that is the critical distinction here. EON isn't offering passive video lectures. They are bringing 25 years of pedigree in extended reality or XR in immersive learning to this platform. The global virtual campus features over 9,000 courses mapped directly to the technical pathways of the Green Deal. We were talking about the circular economy, the EV supply chain, green construction.
Walk us through what that actually looks like for the user. How does a displaced marketing manager in Lisbon actually learn to repair a wind turbine using this system?
They do it through spatial computing and AI mentors. So, the student puts on an XR headset and is immediately placed inside a high-fidelity 3D simulation of that specific wind turbine.
Like they're actually standing in front of it.
Exactly. They aren't reading about it in a textbook. They are physically walking around the virtual model, interacting with the components. And standing right next to them in that virtual space is an AI mentor.
And this AI mentor is handling the instruction dynamically.
Yes, but here's the key, and this solves the problem we mentioned earlier. The AI mentor operates natively in all 24 EU official languages.
Wait, natively, not just translated subtitles.
Natively. It isn't running a delayed translation script. It is instructing the student in native Portuguese, explaining the torque required for a specific bolt, watching the student perform the action in the simulation, and correcting their mistakes in real time.
Wow.
This means zero translation investment is required from any university that adopts the platform. The AI scales the language and the personalized instruction infinitely.
I mean, it sounds like the absolute holy grail of vocational training, but here is the massive red flag that jumped out at me while reading this.
Oh, what is it?
Well, Eon AI Ventures is headquartered in California. Anyone who follows European policy knows that the EU regulators do not play around.
Oh, they definitely don't.
They have the strictest data privacy laws on Earth. They are incredibly wary of American tech monopolies, and they fiercely protect their sovereign academic standards. How does a California tech startup bypass that wall of notoriously strict EU red tape to claim a piece of a 65 billion euro pie?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, EON's strategy here is a masterclass in geopolitical maneuvering.
Okay, how so?
Well, EON is not acting as an American disruptor kicking down the door of the European establishment. They are utilizing a strategic Trojan horse.
A Trojan horse.
Yes.
Yeah.
EON is providing the technological layer, the XR, the AI mentors, the spatial computing. But the actual academic engine, the entity granting the credentials, is their partner, UBT, the University for Business and Technology.
Now, when the text says UBT is a Bologna native European institution, I'm assuming that means they are already wired directly into the standardized European degree system. Like, a degree from them is instantly recognized by an employer in Munich or Paris.
That is the exact mechanism, yes. The Bologna process is the foundational agreement between European countries that ensures comparability in the standards and quality of higher education.
Okay.
UBT was born entirely inside that framework. They are a highly respected European institution ranked number 6 globally for industry and innovation.
Number 6 globally? That's serious leverage.
Yeah, and they boast a 98% graduate employment rate. They already have physical campuses operating in Kosovo, Vienna, Budapest, and Tirana.
So Eon essentially built the ultimate high-tech, AI-driven sports car in California, but they made absolutely sure the engine, the chassis, and the license plates were fully registered and compliant in Europe before they ever tried to drive it on the Autobahn.
Haha, that is a perfect way to visualize it, because UBT is aligned with the European qualifications framework.
Right.
Because they are already EU AI Act compliant, and because they are fully GDPR ready with European data residency options, there is no regulatory friction.
None at all.
Practically none. When a European Ministry of Education or legacy university reviews this partnership, they aren't reviewing a foreign import. It is a pure partnership from inside the house. The source notes that the legal review for a traditional university to adopt this platform typically only takes 1 to 2 weeks, simply because there is nothing unusual for their lawyers to flag. It is legally bulletproof by European standards.
Okay, building a hyper-efficient, fully compliant, multilingual system is an incredible engineering feat. But to actually solve a labor crisis of this magnitude, massive, stubborn, slow-moving bureaucracies have to adopt it.
And that's usually where these things fail.
Exactly. How is EON convincing centuries-old universities and cautious government ministries to actually sign the paperwork and deploy this?
They are doing it by completely removing the financial risk from the equation. For academic institutions, joining the global virtual campus requires 0 new institutional budget.
0.
0. They do not have to ask their boards for specialized funding. They can fund the partnership entirely using the existing grants from the European Social Fund Plus or the Next Generation EU recovery funds.
And the text explicitly mentions that the adopting institution sets the final student price in euros, right? And they keep the full margin above EON's base operational rate.
Yes, exactly.
They estimate a 70,000 to 150,000 euro annual gross margin per 1,000 students. So the university doesn't just save money, they generate a massive new revenue stream.
Yes. But the pitch to the government, to the European Commission itself, is even more compelling. It centers entirely on a 100x fiscal multiplier.
Okay, let's break down the stakes of that 100x multiplier. If they can reach 100 times more people with the exact same budget, this isn't just about saving money. This is about fundamentally breaking the monopoly that traditional universities have on accreditation.
That's the real disruption here.
Are governments actually ready to bypass their own legacy institutions like that?
Well, governments are being forced to, because the math of the traditional system no longer works. If a government ministry takes a portion of their skills agenda budget and routes it through traditional national retraining programs, they might be able to retrain 1,000 workers.
Okay.
If they route that exact same budget through EON's infrastructure, because the cost is 1% and the AI handles the translation natively, they can reach 100,000 workers across all 27 member states simultaneously.
That is just an unbelievable scale.
Furthermore, the entire system is completely audit-ready. The AI verifies the skill assessment and tracks every single euro all the way to a verified employment outcome.
Oh, governments would love that.
Exactly. For the European Court of Auditors, which is an entity absolutely obsessed with tracking the efficacy of public funds, that level of granular accountability is just irresistible.
So what does this all mean? If I'm playing devil's advocate here, if I am a wildly prestigious institution like a University of Amsterdam or Sciences Pa, both of which are explicitly name-dropped in the source material as targets.
Yeah, they're aiming high.
Right. Why on earth would I share my elite, heavily guarded brand and my students with a virtual platform? Doesn't adopting an outside tech platform severely dilute the prestige they've spent centuries building?
That is the existential dilemma for these legacy institutions. But the source material outlines a ruthless first-mover advantage.
How does that work?
The pitch EON is making is that the first institution in a member state to co-announce with this platform gets a national headline that no marketing budget could ever buy. They instantly get to serve their entire multilingual student body without hiring a single new professor or translator.
Ah, so it's the ultimate weaponization of the fear of missing out.
It truly is.
Yeah.
Yes, it might feel like a perceived risk to a legacy brand to adopt a virtual co-credentialing platform, but the far greater risk is being left behind.
Because someone else will take the deal.
Right. If Sciences Po says no out of pride, and a rival institution says yes, that rival suddenly captures a massive slice of that 65 billion euro funding. They position themselves as the savior of the national workforce.
Wow, yeah.
Prestige will not matter if your graduates cannot find jobs because they lack the highly specific, precision technical skills the green transition demands right now. EON is making the cost of inaction far higher than the cost of adoption.
I want to zoom out from the institutional mechanics for a second because we really need to bring this back to the human element. What does this mean for you listening right now?
It's a crucial pivot.
The press release notes that this entire platform is actually part of a broader philosophy at EON called the Sovereign Human Initiative. And the explicit goal of that initiative is to transform AI-driven workforce displacement into economic empowerment.
That initiative is where EON's 25 years of XR experience really proves its worth. They make a critical distinction in their materials about the nature of artificial intelligence.
Okay, what's the distinction?
They point out that in high-stakes operations, like managing the thermal dynamics of an electric vehicle supply chain or repairing a wind turbine generic consumer AI, is functionally useless.
Because it hallucinates.
Exactly. Consumer AI, like the chatbots most people use today, might give you 80% accuracy. That is perfectly fine for drafting a marketing email. But high-stakes physical operations require 100% precision.
Right. If an AI writes a slightly clunky marketing email, you might lose a prospective lead. If an AI incorrectly trains a technician on how to manage a high-voltage smart grid...
The physical consequences are catastrophic.
Exactly. By bringing enterprise-grade, precision-focused AI into the educational space, they're ensuring these workers are actually ready for the unforgiving reality of the field.
This raises an important question, though, and it sits at the very heart of the Sovereign Human Initiative. How do we define human sovereignty, our independence, our autonomy, our core economic value, when 40% of what we currently do at our desks is being actively automated by the very technology we are discussing?
It's a scary thought. If your value was tied to processing spreadsheets or writing basic code, and a machine now does that instantly, where did your sovereignty come from?
What this source material suggests is that survival in the modern economy is no longer about fighting the automation of your current tasks. It is about aggressively and dynamically mapping your skills to where the tectonic plates of the global economy are shifting.
And for Europe, those plates are shifting massively toward the Green Deal.
Right. For you, in your specific industry, it might be a different shift, but the underlying principle remains absolute. You have to locate the structural shortfalls in your field and cross-train into them, using the most advanced tools available.
This is exactly why this deep dive matters for you. Whether you are actively looking to upskill or you are simply trying to understand the massive macroeconomic forces that are quietly reshaping your industry while you sleep, the speed of adaptation is everything.
It really is.
The days of sequentially learning a single skill in your 20s and riding it to retirement are over. The dual disruption of AI displacement and structural labor shortages is not a future projection. It is the current, undeniable reality.
Yeah.
EON's model shows us that the solutions are going to have to be as radical, as fast, and as highly scaled as the massive problems themselves.
And it proves that the old, comfortable silos, the idea that technology companies build software, legacy universities grant degrees, and governments slowly write checks, those walls are completely dissolving.
They have to dissolve.
Exactly, because the traditional architecture simply cannot process the demands of the modern crisis.
We are watching the foundational mechanics of how humans learn, work, and build value being ripped up and repoured simultaneously. And it leaves me with a lingering thought based on everything we've unpacked today.
What's that?
If an AI-powered virtual campus can successfully deliver 9,000 highly technical accredited courses, do it natively in 24 languages with absolute precision, guarantee a 98% employment rate, and do it all for just 1% of the cost. How long until the traditional physical university campus goes from being a basic career necessity to becoming nothing more than an incredibly expensive luxury good?
That is the €65 billion question.
Something to mull over until next time. Keep diving deep.